part of running a tournament, yeah.
But it takes a lifetime to have something of value to talk about.
Yes.
All right, so we're back. Combat-based podcast
Whoa,
in the garage.
so sick.
Got the two dogs.
Shai
We
and
got Shai and Sadie. Tobin, the producer, I'm here. What up, guys? Thanks for coming through for another show. We got the CEO,
The chief.
the chief, femme fatale.
What's up, haters?
We got the venerable on deck,
Woohoo. Chris Haueter.
Chris Haueter.
You
And
say, what's up, lovers?
Today, we're going to talk about children's combat sports. Okay?
Okay.
So, in the time that I've been doing jiu-jitsu, when I started, there was these sort of jovial kids jiu-jitsu tournaments that people were doing. And that has developed into full-blown, what looks like an adult jiu-jitsu tournament where kids are fully hyped and jacked to the gills and ripping off their shirts and screaming because they won. But they're little kids. It's not adults. I've also seen like kids MMA. Kids are doing full-on MMA with headgear and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I think one of the interesting points is that the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu perspective on kids learning combative stuff is more to create these games and stuff like that and keep it a really fun and loose and easy thing until they get older and can actually accept that type of loss and heartache and extreme highs and lows. So just wanted to hear what you guys are thinking about that.
Not only that, but I don't really feel that comfortable with, like, I've mentioned this before, children getting choked, strangulation, hyperextension of ligaments. Like, I'm not for myself comfortable with that or wanting my children to experience that because I know how messed up I've been over time. I've seen plenty of people get choked unconscious. I don't think that's good for our brains. Children's brains are developing. So, I mean, I think it's a definite choice on how you know, if you want your child to participate in that, that's totally okay. For me and any children that I ever practice with, teach, or my own children, I would rather just play games and build on foundational skills rather than throwing them out into the pit, fight to the death. Or the tap.
I think, like usual, like all things, I think, of course, I have an opinion. I have all kinds of opinions on this, and my opinion over time has changed. But I like to zoom way out first. Like, what is the point of martial arts for anybody? And what is the point of the subset of combat sports? What is the individual drivers and the societal drives? And then you get into, is it for entertainment? Are you creating a show that will get eyeballs and butts in seats to make money? Are you doing it to preserve an art? Are you doing it so these kids or adults are learning self-defense? Are they doing it just because it's fun? And that includes all sports, right? All sports. And the combat sports, I think we can all, like, I go back to a time before MMA when society, especially in the West, was really questioning whether boxing should become a relic of the past. It was before football was, you know, is ramming heads stupid? Is this? And then, of course, the argument always is, why should these athletes be told they can't compete in this thing? They're willing to take on the risk, therefore allow them to. And we could turn a whole show into that. The ethical needs of society versus the individual rights, right? It comes down to, and this is a topic with everything from abortion to guns to all this, like, boils down to, are we talking about societal needs, individual needs, or small collective or group needs? And when you get into the combat sports and children, now we're adding a whole other element. And I always like to bring it back to the 1900s and child labor laws, which are now rapidly being undone. Should kids have the right to work? Should parents have the right to let and allow their kids to work? Should they be able to work in factories with heavy machinery? Should we pass societal laws that says we are going to create a culture that protects children instead of does that? So that's the mindset I'm thinking about when I think about a combat sports. Societal needs, individual needs, and of course I love martial arts, I love combat sports. I want my children to have these skills because they might actually need them. I also want them to have fun because it's a fun sport, which is intricate, and sports are fun. So that's my intro on the whole topic.
Well, I think having a perspective of being in midlife or past midlife, having health issues, getting hit in the head and suffering a concussion, different experience that I have makes me think about children getting injured in a whole new light, right? And like you were talking about MMA or boxing for kids, even if they're wearing headgear. So my understanding is that wearing headgear doesn't necessarily protect your brain.
It can almost make it worse.
It can almost make it worse, and that some people choose to train without headgear so that they're not punching as hard, because that chronic blow to the head is not good for our brains.
Yep.
I'm really into right now researching brain health. My grandma had dementia. She passed away, whatever.
Yep.
You know, like
You got hit in
thinking
the
about
head.
my own
Yep.
brain and how it's responding to this injury, and that just our heads and our brains and children's brains are developing. Like, it's such a delicate time. I don't really think that I would want my kid volunteering to get hit in the head all the time. He plays soccer, so he could get hit with a ball, but so far he hasn't had any bad head hits.
Yep.
So that's good.
I think everyone out there is that whether they can articulate it or not, are weighing out, is this good for my kid or bad?
Mm-hmm.
Is this too risky, or is the risk of not having these skills worse than the risk of acquiring these skills? And it comes down to that whole self-defense argument. At least from my perspective, it's like I have two kids, a girl and a boy, and I recognize that, call it misogyny, whatever it is, that for some reason I have a stronger need to want my son to learn combat sports than my girl, even though intellectually she would be the one who would need it more, right? It's like I realize that there's that argument going on in my head all the time.
I think that other parents out there want their girls to have skills more than their boys,
Yes.
even because of the potential to be a victim
Yes.
in some kind of assault.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is with you. Maybe just because
I fought all the time.
You fought all the time.
I grow up fighting all the time. Bullied, almost every kid is, but because I was a stutterer, like I felt like I had to fight a lot, or the picking on would be worse if
And
I
it
did
was
not react.
It was a different time.
Different time.
And I don't know what it was about, your personality and
Mm-hmm.
the kids that were around you, but where we live, and our particular child
Yes.
happens to be like the kid that hangs out with
Yep.
everybody.
He's well adjusted.
Everybody likes him.
Mm-hmm.
He was going to have no need, at least at his elementary school, to get into a fight.
No need at all.
However, what I think about when I think about kids who actually need to train, is I think about maybe some kids in other areas or other countries where being attacked on the regular does happen. I can think of people that
Yes.
I personally know who live in an area that is unsafe, and whose
Yes.
children trained MMA when they
Yes.
were young.
Yep.
And I think that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
If it's life or limb out there,
Like, example, we are walking the dogs this morning. Redondo Beach has been gentrified, which means there is less violent crime, less all that stuff, and
less
there's
tweakers.
There's a
But
house
there's still some.
that's kind of a meth house. They've got this large pit bull that's off leash out of the house. I can remember years ago where I would walk my dog up the block and I got in a fight with these guys who were affiliated with Hell's Angels because I would walk my dog, their dog would be off leash and would try to attack mine. It's a long thing where I was a purple belt at the time, kicked this guy's butt. It's a good street story when the guy's friend ran out holding a bat. And I'm like, you better put that fucking bat down or I'm going to rip his arm off and beat you with his arm.
Ooh.
Like I was
Angry.
I was in that youthful mode. And there are so many times where I got lucky that somebody did not shoot me or hit me with a bat. So does training martial arts enhance that in one's life? Does it make you more likely to get in street
You
altercations?
mean the aggroness
The aggroness of it.
that you had in that situation?
Yes. In all things. Like, I was very aggro. And I often wonder if my martial arts training helped reduce that, or did it give me more confidence to keep engaging in it?
You and I are similar in that way. We were both like aggro youth that had
Yes.
problems. But I think that in the short term, purple belt, cocky purple belt, it adds to it. And by the time you get over that hump and move to the confidence and the black
Yes.
belt, then you actually benefit from wanting to not use your
Wanting
skills.
to not get in any
Yes.
altercation, even if I know I'm going to win. I have no interest in street altercations.
So do children actually have that level of maturity
Right.
to not want to use their skills more because they have some?
Yeah, well, imagine if you did it since you were a little kid. Maybe you would develop that early. And,
Maybe.
But like how early? Because we personally, we got our black belts when we were in our early 30s.
And
Yeah.
it depends on...
And that's how long it took for us.
Yeah.
So how long? I mean, what if it was us as children?
Like last month, this cool gi brand that's being released, I go on a photo shoot where they've got a young competition athlete. They have me, the older statesman with stripes, and these kids that are basically Instagram influencers, professional, the jiu-jitsu kids who are homeschooled. That's what they do. And their parents are pouring into it. I'm sure they enjoy it. They look like they do. My brain, who wouldn't enjoy it? So yeah, I mean, that's like a thing now, right? And like, we could discuss whether we think that's good for our kids. We think that's good for society. Like, that's kind of the whole ball of wax. What do you think?
I mean, that's definitely the fantasy, right? Like the movie 300. All the little kids in the Spartan society, they all train like
Yep.
from birth, and they're all like into combat. But even in that movie, the story that we tell in society is what our movies are. It's kind of a playful thing that they do. They're not really doing full-blown heated
Right.
competition. I think the spot that looks concerning to me is not the fact that they're doing it, but that the attitude that they're carrying with wins and losses.
It's
in
not
this thing.
humility.
I don't know if it's not humility, but it definitely looks like somebody experiencing extreme highs and extreme lows at a young age.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that like kids are really equipped with the
Right.
tools, et cetera, and skills to be able to manage those highs and lows
Yes.
properly. And I find it hard dealing with those highs and lows as an adult that's had a lot of life experience. So that's really where I'm concerned. I see my kids, and one of the things that they do in their judo school that I think is really great and beneficial is there's a really strong sense that, sure, the objective is to get the throw or whatever, but you're kind of helping each other get the throws, right?
You're
So-
trying to not body slam the kid. You're trying to do the art of judo in the most elegant way.
yeah,
That culture
but
pushes that.
it's more like if you lose an exchange, it's not of large consequence.
It's not the end of the world.
It's
Yeah.
almost like accepted as a part of doing the thing.
Yeah.
And there is even a part of doing the thing where you should be letting your teammates get a throw. So learning how to be thrown is like a skill, maybe.
Yeah.
And so you kind of see that
learning how to fall right.
when the kids
is
are
part of the game. Yeah.
when the kids are competing with each other. I don't see as such highs and lows with that group of kids.
Yeah, I would say so.
And then I just see these like really high emotional states with these other kids. It's kind of concerning to me.
I think
yeah, go ahead.
I'll just say current society has brought what we all of us humans have 100,000 years of evolution telling us to be fearful, to be aggro, to win fights, to run fast, to throw spears better than other kids. And modern culture has evolved away from that. But it's clearly in our genes to where those genes are easily tickled. And I think that current book culture is making it more acceptable to have kids a pit fight. It's making it more acceptable to have dogs dog fight. And I personally think that that is not good for society. And whether that makes me an elitist snob or, oh, you're bashing on martial arts is good for kids. Like, I get all those arguments and I understand them on an individual level. What I'm talking about is whether that's good for society.
And what I was thinking is that the issue with kids, I guess, is it like showboating when they win, getting all crazy, like, ah, or crying with if they get defeated? It's really not just kids.
It's adults.
It's adults. The adults are doing this. If I win a match, I get my hand raised and I smile. I don't have
we model
hissy
the
fit,
behavior.
right? Because what I learned, partially from doing it the wrong way, sometimes when I was like a blue belt, but that I win or lose with grace.
Yep.
And that is what I think we, as jiu-jitsu, I'm talking about specifically jiu-jitsu now, as a jiu-jitsu community and as the elders should model that for our children.
Yes, and too many of us don't.
And it should maybe even be like a rule, maybe, that the tournament venues, say we don't have these, grandiose...
Rip your gi off, pound your chest.
Yeah, we
giant
don't do that.
medals. Like, it's like, I could see why the normie out there looks at MMA, jiu-jitsu and all that, and sees it, oh my God, this is a horrible thing for, like, and what I mean is the aesthetics around it, not the actual art, right? And, like, I think we all know that underneath all the aesthetics and chest pounding and all that stuff is this beautiful, wonderful art. That's the part I love about this. I am not a fan of the aesthetics around it. I love mixed martial art. I hate mixed martial show.
So then I'm asking myself in my own head and wanting to answer this question, why? Why does it bug me? Or why do I not want to be the person that's having a conniption fit on the side of the mat because I lost a match? What is it about that? And I mean, I think that it's emotional dysregulation.
Yeah.
We're teaching ourselves and our children that it's okay to be emotionally dysregulated.
Yeah.
And that is a reason why we go to therapy or we send our kid to therapy, is to learn how to regulate our emotions. So just because I feel some type of way doesn't mean that I can lose my shit,
And just
whether
act
it's
out.
positive or negative,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Whether I'm happy or destroyed.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how like freaking out like that, like say we had just the two of us rolling and I were to like get something good happen and then I freaked out and was like, yeah, that would be totally unacceptable. But then when we do it in public, for some reason it's cool.
It's weird how
it's like acceptable in a public setting.
Because people want to watch somebody else be emotionally dysregulated.
The show.
It
People
gives them pleasure
Yeah.
to see emotional dysregulation, which
Possibly.
like as a goal, like if we're going to go into stoicism or
Yep.
just whatever, carrying ourselves with grace in class and ultimately having inner peace.
Yes.
It's about getting to a level of emotional regulation.
And clearly, culture right now is attracted to this show of conflict. People want to see people act out. And that has become, it's taken over our culture, is acting out. And it's one of those things that we said, no, we're not going to talk about politics. There's a both sides element that we are culturally attracted to obnoxious conflict, which we are entertained. And some people say, like, that was a sign of the fall of the Roman Empire, was the gladiators becoming entertained. And like on one level, you look at it, that's cool as fuck. Right, reenacting old battles in the middle, like having a show before movies. They would have plays where like there would be a fight within the drama of the play, and people because humans love drama. We have this drive and this need for drama, and sometimes it's like people always love to use the thing, it's natural, it's good because it's natural. Uranium is natural. There are all kinds of natural things that I don't think are good for both the individual and culture.
High fructose corn syrup isn't good either.
High fructose corn syrup.
Chris is like, it's corn.
Good.
I want to say,
I love high fructose.
You brought up it's a natural driver to want to be aggressive and all these different things. Wouldn't you say like tugging at the other side of that is that there is nature to want to nurture kids?
Yes.
And make
we
sure
also
that they're...
have that drive.
Yeah.
We have both an individual greed, I want mine now drive. At the same time, we have an altruistic, I want to help others. I'm willing to run out and pick that 3-year-old who's about to walk into cars. I will risk my life. And we instinctively have that. As much as we have a save my own ass instinct as well.
So maybe nudging your kids to be
the savior,
doing the combat sports and getting into these situations and building some aggression is more okay if it's backed up with some nurturing and care and love at the other end.
Or
possibly.
teaching them about emotional regulation so that they're not going around being all crazy. I mean, I think that if my kid really wanted to be involved in sport jiu-jitsu, that I would be supportive.
Absolutely.
He would love it. He'd be like, yes, finally. But I would want to teach them the lessons that I have learned. Sportsmanship. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess that becomes like way more important for kids.
Yeah.
Particularly, right?
Yes.
Adults can deal with emotional dysregulation a little better maybe, and it's important to kids are not able to help them be able to and be able to model that. So I guess it's important for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think so. I think, especially as a kid, that sportsmanship and doing things with class and grace is better lesson than winning. And we always hear that, what's the common line? It's not how you win, it's how you play the game. And then the argument is, fuck you, it's all about winning, right? There's two of those things. And like, as a coach, I feel like I could give a dramatic speech about you go out there and fucking win or die trying. But at the same time, I could give a speech on, doesn't matter whether you win or lose, do it with fucking self-respect in class, right? Those are two competing instinctive drives in us.
Yeah. And it's interesting, like how in my head, I feel like at the beginning, I was like, yeah, I really don't like kids doing jiu-jitsu. Then I'm like, but I would let my kid do it. You know what I mean? Like it's a lot of things. Chris talks about this all the time. It's not black and white. There's like dueling things happen at the same time.
Yes.
It just so happens that neither of our kids are interested in sport jiu-jitsu, but it's like whatever they're interested in, I think we would be supportive of that and
100%.
Just try to do it in the safest and most respectful way to learn the most, like not only skills, but also life lessons, because that's really, when kids are young, I think that doing sports is a lot about life lessons.
And as a guy who thinks a sport like soccer, basketball is better for your kids because they're learning group dynamics,
To work
to
together.
work in a team. So if you're going to take your 14-year-old and send them into platoon size combat, they're better off being a soccer player than a wrestler, because they learn how to work as a team, how to pass, how to pay attention to. They're better on the group hunt than they will. But the wrestler is going to clearly be better in the one-on-one fight.
And Chris, you've often talked about like how, and I'm sure a lot of people know this as well, that our sports are like a model for war.
Metaphors of the hunt and war.
Hunt and war. So yes, we're training our kids to do that. Now, Allison is becoming a runner, which is also a critical skill, and she would get away.
That's a critical self-defense skill. Every class
She can run for 7 miles in a row.
I always warm up. We always have a run. And it's not for fitness and all that, although that's good. It's because running is the first part of self-defense. Be able to run. That's like the first thing. Then when you cannot run, you're in a stand-up phase, a clinch phase, a ground phase. Then let's roll and have fun, because rolling is fun. And that's like the general course of how I teach.
Yeah, it kind of seems like for kids specifically, like fitness and coordination should really be the goal, and not necessarily being like dominant, kick everybody's butt that you can see type of thing. So I'm wondering, what do you think? What would be a good age to get kids going, and what would a kids class look like in your mind?
Individual.
People ask me that a lot, like over time, and I've worked with some kids that were 3 and 4 to start, and we had it back here, and we would run around and play, and I would have them do drills, and I would make up games to simulate movements that we do in jiu-jitsu. I would have them mostly practice with me rather than on each other, because I feel like they would always hurt each other and someone would cry. Literally every class, someone would cry. Okay, so I don't know if I don't necessarily think that is necessary. And for my own kids, I found it way more valuable to have them doing like gymnastics and learning about strengthening their bodies and how to jump properly and land properly, things like that. That's what I did with my own kids. But you know, if people are really wanting them to do martial arts, I mean, when I did it back here, I let them wear whatever they wanted, and you know. But I think that there's also something to be said about having gis and having more discipline and structure a little bit to teach them how to follow directions and things like that as well.
I've noticed, like with my own kids, that the big thing is coaching your kids into being focused and to learning how to focus. That's like a skill, right? And a skill that I definitely struggle with today.
ADHD types, like me and my son, that's a hard skill.
Having taken them around to a couple different martial arts situations, the structure really helps with the focus.
Yes,
and I think,
yeah,
that can be a good thing.
Our son thrives a lot in structure, but the thing is about him is that his focus, it's so great when he's into something. So focused with soccer. He used to be so focused with the parkour. And I think parkour is excellent. I highly recommend that to any parent to get their children involved in parkour, because they're learning how to climb and how to fall and how to do all these things safely. So when Andy gets knocked over on the soccer field, he does these rolls, you know, like he just rolls out. You know, he's very agile. I think having agility, body awareness, and strength is super important. He jumps on the trampoline all the time, because we just send him the trampoline like all day, and he sends himself to the trampoline. He emotionally regulates himself with his trampoline.
With exercise,
But I mean, specifically that. It's really great for him. Now he juggles the ball in the trampoline and things like that.
Last night when I came to train, we had to do like a little kid exchange, because Jamie was a little late getting out of clinic. So she drove here and I drove here, and I had the kids and we swapped the kids. And when I was taking the kids from one car to the other, they were like, is Andy still awake? We want to go on the trampoline. Is Andy still awake? So funny. And then they saw somebody in the window and they're like, oh, Andy's definitely awake. Andy's definitely awake. Let's go inside.
Aw.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Andy loves when other kids come.
Yeah, super fun.
He loves that. Yeah.
The other thing it's got me thinking is there definitely is a situation that some parents have in mind where in order for they have this thought that in order for they want their kid to be a competitive athlete, not just for jiu-jitsu, for whatever. And they really feel like, oh, in order to be competitive, I got to start them young and like push them on this track really young. And they've got a whole lifestyle kind of planned for their kid based on a specific
Yes.
sport.
They're living through their kid.
And I
Yeah.
feel like maybe some of them might not be living through their kid, but it feels to me like they're just as a human nature to wanting to make your own choice about what your life is.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you stuff that down your kid's throat, that might have negative repercussions. I think there was a famous football player in the 90s, maybe, whose dad, like that Marv Marinovich, maybe I want to say, he did that, like had this football program for his son.
And he drove his son.
And then his son became like a drug addict eventually, to cope with the trauma
I think
associated.
it like everybody has their own personality type, their own buttons and drives, and like I have friends of mine who I think if I grew up, or if I grew up in the environment they grew up in, I wouldn't have made it. And maybe there's things in my life that people wouldn't adapt to very well because, I mean, you're a psychology. I mean, people adapt to the environments in which they are in, and adaptation is not always advantageous. It's immediately it's immediately important to be in denial, but not for the long run. And other times there are things that in one situation it's very healthy to not obsess about or think about or behave this way or react. But then in another area, that's exactly what you ought to do. So I think it really depends on the individual, the situation, what it is. And some kids are going to get benefits from being in a martial arts environment, seeing, boy, I don't want to be like that. Whereas other kids are going to be in that and get drawn and become what they don't want to be, right? So, yeah, I think it's so variable. Like you can't control it. But I personally, like, would you rather bring your kid to a school that was kind of strict, a lot of egos, hierarchical, but they always win? Or the school that doesn't win all of the time, but you learn manners, focus, helping others, like all that. Like,
It depends on the person.
Depends on the person.
Right. It depends on the person. And for me, in my journey, and I do a lot of like, I guess we could call it kind of therapy stuff, spiritual stuff, whatever, is that I realize that my children, they're individuals. They're not extensions of me. They're not part of my identity. They don't have to be interested in what I'm interested in. I'm not going to force them to live their life the way that I live my life.
Or the way you wish you would have.
Or the way I'm not going to make up for anything I didn't do through my kids. But rather, I look at them as individuals and I try to help foster their particular interests. So Andy became interested in soccer. So I'm going to do everything I can to support that for as long as he's interested in it.
Yep.
If he's not interested in it anymore, we won't do it anymore. But I do think about the future. Like if you want to make the soccer team in high school, you better start learning how to play soccer at a pretty young age because there's all the other kids who are trying out for the team have been playing since they were young. Mm-hmm. And if you just start playing in 8th grade and you want to make the soccer team in high school in a competitive area, you're probably not going to make the team. Yeah. So that's another thing to think about. Now with Allison running, she didn't really run until she went to high school, but the kids, like some of the girls who did run, they made varsity in their freshman year, and I mean, I think that running is something that you've always kind of been doing. So it's not quite the same as playing a complicated sport like tennis or soccer or, you know what I mean? Things that are a little bit more
culturally
hard.
You go back 100 years before child labor laws and all that stuff. Kids really were just something that you got them ready to go work. as fast as you could.
Or for you on your farm.
Whether you're on a farm or whatever it is. And like when I was a kid, what was kind of the rise of adults organizing sports and play for kids. Whereas my dad, he grew up in a period where there wasn't adult organized things. Kids would just go climb a tree. Now they're like making play structures and all this. And like I'm blown away at how organized and professionalized and serious adult organized children's sports are. It boggles my mind that there are 24 soccer fields happening at once. Like when I grew up, it's like grab a ball, meet your friends at the park, and play.
But if our kids weren't participating, if he wasn't participating in this, and if he did want to play soccer in high school, like again, he probably wouldn't make the team because it has become so competitive.
So competitive at such a young age. Yep.
Competitive when we were young. It wasn't as competitive. When your dad was young, competition for kids probably didn't even exist.
High school it started.
So it's like they're learning these things younger. They want to be able to play as they grow up. And then the other part of it is how much time we as parents spend driving them around on the weekend to all the events.
I know.
Yeah.
So the one thing that I notice with the organized kids sports, which is I think a bummer about the super organization of these sports, is that they kind of become like up and out. And I mean that in like you're saying like, oh, you better get good or else you're not going to be on the team.
Right.
And the sport ends once you're not on the team.
Right.
Whereas when it's disorganized, there's room for everybody to play.
You could jump in and out anytime. But when it's so structured, it's like for me as a guy who growing up, I didn't really like adult organized things. It always kind of bugged me, like seeing some parent like, okay, kids, we're all going to come over here and play this now. Let me show. I was like, no, I'm going to go play on my fucking own. Yeah. But like, I understand, like, but I also understand, like, now that I'm an adult, how I want to organize something for the kids. And let's get all the kids in this. But I always ask myself, the philosopher in me, is why I'm doing this. What are the drives? Like, what is the instinctual drives that make me think that this is what we should do? And are those necessarily good? Because I don't think all instincts are necessarily good. I don't think anything that's natural means good as in terms of value. I think a lot of natural ways humans interact, from my perspective, from my ethical vantage point, is actually very bad for not only me, the individual, or my kids, the individual, but definitely for societal norms.
I want to go back to something you said, though, because, like, okay, so I'm thinking along the track of playing for high school, maybe playing for college, maybe getting a scholarship, which is very different than can you play at all? Because, of course, you can still play. You can, like soccer, you can still play AYSO.
And there's adult
If you're a
leagues
runner, you can go running anytime. You can grab a ball and play with your friends. So you still kind of can play. It's just like, how serious do you want to be about this thing? And if your child shows an inclination towards something, why not take a shot at it to see if they have a chance of playing and maybe getting a scholarship?
Especially in an age where the middle class is rapidly shrinking. And we are heading towards a period since 1980 where we had about a 40-year run where the middle class was growing. Now the middle class is shrinking. And the only way into the upper class is through college, professional sports, becoming an entertainer, inventing a widget. Like, you can't just go get a job that's going to last for 20 years making washing machines on an assembly line with a union protecting you. That phase of the West is rapidly coming to an end, and which is also creating all kinds of anxietal problems within a culture. That's when everybody starts to blame. And our brains want to blame either the poor for stealing our jobs or the elite for selling us out. And the right and left each have a version of who the bad guy is. But ultimately, what we're losing is middle class stability. And professional sports is a way out.
Just
One shot.
not to go like too hard on the politics
Yeah.
thing, but I find it kind of weird that like the current zeitgeist solution to what you're explaining is to invite China to the United States to like set up factories and stuff like that,
Yeah.
so that there's jobs for us to do.
Yeah.
I feel like that feels kind of weird.
Well, I mean, it's when you
How's that going to work?
That's the plan, right?
Oh,
well, I
didn't know
mean,
that.
there's multiple plans, and the problem with conspiracy theories is all good ones have grains of truth. It's like I could create easily a conspiracy that Chris Haueter is a closet fascist, and I could show you on the internet pictures.
You shouldn't say this
of
because
him.
that's going to come up on BJJ Eastern Europe. What's
Yes.
up? What's up, guys?
Yeah. And showing me, show pictures. Well, okay, let's create a conspiracy that jiu-jitsu isn't real at all. The sport is all fake. Those matches are all shows. And I could find you examples where it was a fake fight. And so you could create a theory on why there's a secret cabal running anything. But there also is groups of people with power, with intentions, deceiving large groups to follow certain pathways, right? And like, I'm trying to avoid any specific thing because then it becomes an ideological battle. But propaganda is real. And propaganda is highly effective in changing people's minds or getting people to believe nothing is true. There is no truth. There isn't a fact. It's all, then it's whoever has the loudest voice and the might wins. So how certain authoritarian movements work, one of the first things you have to get rid of is collective truth, to where you don't know what's true anymore. You can't trust elections. You can't trust media. All media lies. All politicians lie. This is a way to break the ground truth. And this is something that Russia, with the help of China, has done very well to the West. It's killing collective truth. And to talk about it becomes kind of depressing, so most people don't want to talk about it because it's a depressing thing. So it grows. I'm not saying that I have any power to stop it, because propaganda is so fucking powerful. And
Can't we all just get along?
Yeah.
I don't want to make sandwiches.
Yeah. Yes, you could create an argument, and it's out there, that the downfall of the West began when women got the vote. Well, like that's a very
No, I don't want to cook
that's a very common argument out there.
or clean.
You could create that the downfall of the West is when civil rights came about. You could also create one that says that, I'm trying to think of a good opposite one. Well, like the grand conspiracy theory, and I actually have a piece of art I did in 2011 that like has this skull screaming, and it's got every conspiracy
It's right there.
theory. No, I don't have. Oh yeah, like pouring out of its brain. Like, and ultimately, that was when the conspiracy. When I first heard people who believed that the Earth is flat, I thought no one believes that.
Flat earthers.
Or if they're on the internet, they don't really believe it. It's trolling. They got to be trolling. And I think the nuance is it's both. Is some people know what they're pushing isn't really true, but they know that pushing that fucks up collective truth. And for some reason, some people want to just see things burn. Some people want to break things. and the philosophy of Silicon Valley was move fast, break things. There's a good part of that because there's change that comes along, disruption to bring in new technology. There's very much a liberal argument that is a good thing. There's also an evil argument that when you break down societal norms, institution, established truth, then you get anxiety. And when a culture feels anxietous, individuals begin to feel more of that. And it starts to affect other ones. And yeah, I think, boy, we moved away from the kids in sports, but
trolling and breaking things down.
and the Earth being flat is like the ultimate conspiracy. Is that the Earth is flat, and lizard people, aliens, have tricked us, or the demons have into believing the Earth is flat, planting fake T-Rex bones in there, because the Earth is really a flat disc, 6,000 years old, and has a, I haven't looked at their thing, but what is that word they call the dome over our flat Earth, which is what they believe it is. And yeah, but people have gotten so good with the knowledge and the words to where if you don't really know, you could believe their argument. You could see how, God, somebody is creating a matrix, right? Do we really exist? Or are we consciousness uploaded into a computer and we think we're characters, but really we're all just NPCs playing in a world created by the humans that 6 million years ago, the Earth already exploded and we're just existing in a fake, like that is a plausible theory.
Yeah.
So is the Earth being flat. That there is logic behind that. There's logic behind every conspiracy out there, which is why people believe them.
Yeah.
Well, it's just kind of making me think. What I'm thinking about is, you're talking about trolling and destruction,
Yes.
and I'm just thinking about men being like really unsupportive of my position on this podcast.
Yes.
Like that's part of it, right?
Yeah.
Telling me to make a sandwich,
Yes.
or saying, why don't these guys get that woman in check, or that woman sounds like a real B-bomb, or whatever, or I don't take my martial arts advice from women,
Yeah.
or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think that's part of that, right?
Yes.
The destructive, like negativity. Keep commenting, haters.
Yes.
More comments, haters.
It's like, as an artist, there is street art that I find wonderful.
Oh, you're so pretty.
But there's also vandalism, and in the graffiti culture, there's a lot of arguments about what is art and what is vandalism, and there are rules like you only tag public places or large corporations. You don't tag the neighbor's kid's playhouse in the yard. There are like rules within the culture, and it's interesting why we have those rules, but especially boys, young boys, and I had it, like I had people growing up when I was involved, who there is a drive to vandalize. There's an energy that wants to just fuck things up. And sometimes that energy gets into the mainstream.
I sent us on a wild tangent there.
Is it your fault?
It's my fault.
You're fine.
But that's good information. It's
Chris
interesting.
is the king of tangents. You
I
didn't
am the
know
king
that?
of tangents. I love tangents.
That should be I feel like there's probably a tangent jiu-jitsu school somewhere, the name Tangent.
We can also change his name to King of Tangents from the Venerable.
Oh. But back to kids' martial arts. One of the things that I really like about kids' martial arts is that we were kind of talking about, we're at me with my kids, we're just leaving the junction of T-ball. And the baseball program like ramps up really quick.
It
and
does.
it gets really competitive really quick.
And gets really hardcore.
And there's no baseball to play if you're not doing the hardcore baseball.
If you're not the hardcore, yep.
I
There is
heard
no
Sunset
baseball.
isn't that intense.
I don't know.
Andy played at Sunset. So that like here there's like tab and then there's Sunset, and like tab is like super competitive, and there's different leagues.
Well, where
Just
we are
research it.
in our neighborhood, there's one
Okay,
league.
there's only one. Oh, okay.
And one of the cool things about the martial arts is I feel like whether kids can participate in a regular practice of martial arts and never compete, that's like totally okay, particularly at the judo situation. So that can be a good thing. But shoot, I think we hit some good topics there. Let's move on to the next part of the show.
Heck yeah,
Let's do it.
let's do it.
I talk way too much.
He was just telling me today how he was going to talk less.
I know.
And I said, I have things to say when you pause, and Tobin does too. We have things to say. But I also understand, as does Tobin, you are Chris Haueter, why we're here.
No,
Yeah.
I also, and maybe it's unhealthy, but I approach conversations similar to rowing. You got to get in and do it. And if you want in, you got to cut it off.
But
Otherwise,
they don't like it when I cut you off, Chris. Then I'm a B-bomb.
Yeah.
She interrupts him when he has really good things to say.
Yeah, if you stop talking, Chris, I think
If
we
you
won't
stop
have a
talking,
show.
the show's over.
So-
Show's over. Curtains.
You gotta-
They don't want to hear me and Tobin
talk.
and the dog.
That's horrible. That's horrible that our society has become. What is the first podcast you ever got into or heard?
Zero.
was
I don't
thinking
listen
that
to
the other day.
podcasts.
I think it was
You haven't
Joe
had
Rogan.
one yet.
I don't have one. I have
think it
zero
was Joe
interest in
Rogan.
podcasts.
Mine was Mark Maron.
I love this podcast. It's my favorite one.
this is the best podcast.
I listen to it too.
I do too. It's
This
good.
one's your first.
Yep, this is my first podcast.
Epic. Do you have a gym shout out for your favorite podcast?
Can I just shout out Combat Base Camp?
Yeah.
Tickets are on sale, you guys. Combat Base Camp. It's going to be at Mission Viejo High School, which is where PCI Jiu-Jitsu runs their program with Brian Roig, who's been on the show, catch wrestler.
Yep.
We're also going to have Danny Suarez, who's we've shout out their gym a couple of times. So Cal Combat Club, they have a new facility in Anaheim, which is super awesome. And then we're going to have Jerry Wetzel with some knife defense stuff. Danny's doing the MMA, grappling for MMA. Jerry Wetzel, knife defense.
Weapons.
He's center line gym
Red
in
Zone.
Los Alamitos. I was just there the other day. Super nice new facility they have there as well. But they're coming together. I'm going to do a little yoga. Casey Hanmer, my really good friend and homie from San Diego, is going to teach the women's seminar, which we have the option to just come to the women's seminar only, 3 to 5 p.m. on Friday, July 18th. And then if you want to do the whole camp, you can come, if you're a female, you can come to the entire camp, or just do the women's only seminar if you just want to be with the ladies. Okay.
So what do you guys do with that? Do you make sandwiches and stuff?
Yeah,
or-
we make sandwiches. We practice cleaning the mats.
Oh.
We make sure everything's really hygienic.
The laundry.
Yeah, we practice washing geese. Because when they did jujitsu, the Gracies did jujitsu, the girls would wash the geese. They weren't
right.
allowed to train,
I
but
see.
they would wash the geese. So we practice bringing back the old times.
Nice.
But yeah.
Do you guys do PB&Js or what do you? What kind of sandwiches are you gonna make? Just kidding. I'm sorry. Keep
turkey,
going.
they do them all. We're gonna make lunch for everybody when they come
Nice.
for the real seminar.
Nice.
But
I
yeah,
had
that
somebody-
should be super
Wait,
fun.
just a side note. I had somebody once ask me if you could get them a cup of coffee, and I was like, "Oh boy,
Oh, here.
good luck, brother."
Yeah. They asked Tobin if Melissa could get them a cup of coffee. I was like, you can go to hell.
I was like, "Oh boy, the tournament begins now."
I'm not that mean,
I know, I'm just kidding.
But anyways, yeah,
That
I
sounds
think
epic.
that the camp is going to be really awesome. I'm looking forward to it a lot and bringing people together.
Hopefully, it'll be the opposite energy of Andrew Tate.
Okay, but anyways, and Chris is going to teach 3 full-length seminars. So really, that's the highlight. Is that I was thinking about it the other day, and you might pay $100 to go to one seminar, but the whole camp's on sale right now for $300, and you get 3 seminars plus the grappling for MMA, plus knife defense, plus catch wrestling, plus the women's only if you're a woman, plus plenty of bonding
Plus,
time.
it's fun.
We're going to do a school owners meeting. We're going to have yoga, go out for dinner Saturday night. We'll have open mats on Friday night and Saturday, and hopefully a beach day to end it all.
And
I'm stoked.
and
Tickets are on sale, combatbase.com.
Combatbase.com.
Right now, they're on sale.
and Jerry Wetzel's gonna come be on our show next week.
Yes.
Yes.
So
We love Jerry.
that's gonna be cool.
Yeah.
You gonna like that?
Yeah. He's got a lot to say about self-defense and jiu-jitsu and weapons defense, and I think it's really stuff that we need to consider, because it makes me sad that jiu-jitsu people get killed with knives.
Yeah.
And other people, but I mean, we as martial artists, we're confident in our skills until somebody just shanks us. It's not good.
Yeah. Okay, so let's hit a quick cue. So again, guys, hit the hotline, 949-791-7763. You can call and leave a rant on the hotline. That's the most fun way to be on the show and to contribute to the show.
You can even troll it.
You can talk shit about me.
You can troll it. You can troll.
They can talk shit about me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
talk
Why
shit
don't
about me. You
you
can talk
talk shit on the hotline?
Someone
Shit
needs to talk
talker.
shit about me. I haven't caught any grief online yet.
You haven't gotten any. Has he gotten?
I'm sure I've gotten grief.
Not too much. I get the
too much.
most.
You definitely catch the most
I'm the
heat.
punching bag, you guys. We introduced me as a punching bag instead of the CEO. Okay.
But
How dare a woman have an opinion? How dare?
hit the hotline, all right? Or you can email us, podcast@combatbase.com. All right. So we got a cool email. So this guy says, hello all. First off, love the pod. Great topics and great guests. My question concerns private lessons. I haven't taken a private lesson in at least 15 years.
Ooh.
What do you expect of the student in terms of being prepared for a private lesson? Should they be ultra specific in their requests or just general, such as I want to work on back escapes? What should the student expect of a coach with their private lessons in order to make them worthwhile? Thanks, Anthony.
Oh, Anthony, I love private lessons. I started out with private lessons with Cindy Omatsu, and it was invaluable because I had a really hard time learning in the group class. But obviously everybody's different. So if you're like me and you have a hard time learning in the group class, finding a good instructor, or even just a higher belt, like it doesn't have to be just to help you kind of grasp some of the concepts. But after 15 years, that's a whole nother ball of wax. You want to talk about what you think, Chris?
Yeah, I'll just, I mean, like I always use either the analogy of playing chess is like the white belt to blue belt, learning how to swim is like white belt to the brown belt, learning a language is like the whole deal, right? And you can learn a language by pure immersion, just showing up and eventually picking up words, phrases. Before you know it, you're speaking the language in the group. You can't read or write it, but you can speak the language. And you might even know all the new slang, but you've missed out on the formalities of the language. Like privates is what's teaching you structure, syntax. These are adjectives. These are verbs. Like breaking down the language of the jiu-jitsu and how it relates to other grappling languages. It's like swimming. You could learn to be fairly water safe, but not learning all the strokes and how to do these. Would you rather try to learn those on your own or go to a person who knows how to show you this is how you properly do the butterfly, this is how you properly do the crawl? And like these are what you're comparing. And if you want to play chess, you at least got to learn how things move. You don't necessarily have to learn that through a one-on-one formal private instruction. You could pick it up in a group, but if you do privates, you're going to learn the reason why and the openings of chess and the reason why you control the middle of the board and all that stuff. And because you don't have an infinite amount of time to learn it all, you have a finite amount you evaluate how much time, because we're all born, we have that sand dial and we turn it, and time is running out. And there's that middle range where you're in the optimal amount, where you learn the best, you can still move and all that. Why not bring in some privates to enhance your learning? And that's
Okay.
kind of...
And also, so with students who I've worked with regularly, I feel like as an instructor, I'm able to monitor their progress better in a private lesson than I would in a group class.
Yes.
I can see where they're at. I can kind of guide
feel
them.
where they're at.
Someone coming in just for a one-off, or somebody who's been training a long time, I think I speak for both Chris and myself that we are not rigid. So it really depends on your instructor. If there's a rigid instructor who just wants to show you what they want to show you, then you kind of just got to be open. That's probably not somebody that I would want to go learn from. If somebody comes to me and they say, show me the things that you love to teach or where you start, then that's what I do. If somebody comes to me with a specific question, then that's what I address. If somebody just has a general topic and wants me to show them my take and philosophy around that general topic, I am open to whatever the student wants to do. So really, when somebody comes to me or to Chris, I believe that I would speak for you as well, that when they come to us for a private lesson, that they're basically hiring us to help them with their jiu-jitsu for an hour or two. It's up to you. We're not coming here with a chip saying that we only like to do privates this way. It's about the student as an individual. And
kind of like our last week's episode on Hickson, like for the last 9 years, I've done lots of privates, small group privates with Hickson, and everyone is whether I'm asking him things or he's showing me things, then I ask him a little more about this. It is definitely a better and faster way to learn with jiu-jitsu. But if you only did that, you are going to miss out as well. So, like everything, there's a balance.
Yeah, a huge part of training is just being with the training people.
Sure.
Right. So if you're just you and an instructor all the time, you miss out big time.
You will adapt to the environment in which you are in.
But like Chris said, for learning, or if there's something about your game that you want to tweak, having a private lesson, to me, that's what I would want. Or here we have a really good cultural learning environment. So I could show up to open mat and ask Big Jim, and he'll show me 30 ways to do something. So I don't necessarily have to pay for a private.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of seems like a cool way. Like if you have a specific question or something for your teacher, I think it's a respectful way to get that information. Instead of trying to pull them aside and go hey, show me this real quick, or I have this big question about what I should be focusing on or whatever. I'm sure a lot of instructors like to give that information out, but I think a great way to really get a good, thoughtful answer is to sit them down.
And a very common question that I get all the time towards the end is they're seeking an evaluation of where they're at and asking me what they should be working on. And generally, I've realized through doing privates with Hickson, I'm not going to say that's a bad question, but it's kind of a thing where if I'm present in the thing, I don't have to ask at the end of it, what do I need to work on? Because it's usually pretty clear.
Well, hold on.
But at the same time, I could see where that does become a thing, because a lot of times when you're in learning mode, you're in humble mode, and you're open to say that I'm not doing something right. So that then leaves you in a place where you want to fill that hole up. And I have found that when I leave that hole a little unfilled, that then in that next month I learn more because I learned how to fill it.
Chris, how long has it been since you were a colored belt?
It's a long time.
So you're talking about with the perspective of a 6th degree black belt. So I can still kind of remember what it was like to be a blue belt, and I didn't know what I was supposed to be working on.
That's true.
I wanted to know, how do you progress in this art?
Yeah.
You know, and I
Yeah.
think that question can still remain. You know, anybody that we've promoted to brown belt won't have that question anymore. But if you got your brown belt from somebody else, I can't necessarily say that that'll be true for you. You still might need to know, what do you need to work on to get your black belt?
That's
For
very true.
us,
Yeah.
we try to make sure that that is clear. By the time we're handing somebody a brown belt, they know what they got to do. But again, so for our students that are either coming to us at brown or under, they really do need guidance. We
That's
need
true.
to help them
They
along
need
the
guidance,
path
yes.
of how do they obtain the skills
Yes.
required to get their black belts.
I mean, when I give a private, ultimately, I am finding that out fairly quickly, what I feel like they need to work on. And I feel like I've done a good job if they don't have to ask me that at the end of the private.
Nice. But
sometimes people do ask it because you can't learn everything in an hour, right? You're gonna, it's, I think the best thing you can get from a privates is like little jolts to improve, like you're moving up like this, the little bumps that move you up at a more rapid rate.
Yeah, if I'm working with somebody on a regular basis, I try to say, okay, like let's say we do a private every week or every other week. At the end of the lesson, I say, this is what I would like you to work on until we meet again.
That's good.
Like
Yeah.
I always try to do that. In your roles, you are going to focus on whatever it is, sweeping from guard and whatever, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Nice. Cool, guys. That was great.
Thanks.
I think that's the end of the show.
That's
Oh,
it.
cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice.
Lovely.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Okay, let's turn the show
On
off
3.
now. 1, 2, 3.
Pound,
like, and subscribe.
That was good.
Good. Chris was saying, I said this in the podcast, I'm not going
I'm not
to
gonna
you
talk.
fuck. How many times am I looking like you like, I want to see something. I want to see something. I want to say, all right. And I told him, I said, I always want to say something.
Well,
I can't.
we all have targets on our backs.
Wait, isn't that? Wait, is,